lives who have put service first for this community. It is not just one person, but as Eileen so diligently taught me over the years, a community is made up of people who give, take care of, and work for one another. The best that we can do to honor Cambridge and to honor her memory is to take that charge seriously and devote ourselves to taking care of one another and serve our community well. So I would now like to welcome Ed Solner. Ed was the architect who designed this fountain with Eileen, and he will explain a little bit to you about what this fountain represents.
I have never met a person so dedicated to her community as was Eileen Scott. For 8 years, she envisioned providing Cambridge with an anchor to remember the pioneers that farmed,
lots of things there,
developed.
So we want to carry out this theme of the historical background of Cambridge, and the theme behind all of this is the farmer, because the farmer was the one who really built Cambridge. And it was not only the farmers just right here on the edge, but we might talk about Martin Strumman, who was very active in Dane County, Marvin Smithback, who was very active also in Dane County. Those are all people that need to be recognized when we do something like this. And then over on the other end, we would have the Falks, Gunnelsons, and several other families, and we want all of those families as a part of it. During the past year, I've been able to research people that were involved in all of this. I have 54 names, and about half of those names,
was an artesian well about 1 block south of this location at a former old feed mill. Family farmers, including the farmer, his wife, and kids, would arrive to this town to trade, sell, buy, and refresh at the well with an ice cold drink of fresh water as they arrived and before they left. It was Eileen's desire to replicate by statuary the image of a pioneer farm family who may have ventured here at the turn of the 20th century.
Now I, therefore, Jeff Millsap, on behalf of the Village of Cambridge Board of Trustees, do formally name this park located on the 100 block of Main Street as Founders Park. This is dated the 8th of September 2009. That's really all I have to say at this point. I'm going to turn the program over to Eileen Scott, our Dane County executive, who is, I'm sorry, you see? She's here she's here anyway. Kathleen Falk, thank you. There you go. Yes.
It would be a tremendous honor to be confused with Eileen. I should be so lucky. But she did it not just to live in the past, but to make sure the future was better. And so she was that bridge to making a better future. I love her for those reasons, but then there's a whole nother added value. She was a pioneer in so many ways, being a first elected woman official, and how many years she served, and how hard it is to be a first, and she made it look easy because of her spirit, because of her strength. I, in my generation, have had doors open because of what she did, but because of the wisdom and the gray hair that I see here today, she and you made it possible for me and my generation. And that
Let me finish my story by telling you Jenny and Peter would have 3 boys and 1 daughter. Their daughter was Pauline, was born in 1906. She lived most of her 102 years in Cambridge, and to hundreds of Cambridge kindergarten children, she was known as Mrs. Polly. Polly Strobish was buried last year in the Lake Ripley Cemetery with her husband and parents. Mr. T.C. Slaggs was just across the street. Mr. Slagg was our village president from 1894 to 1897. He passed away in 1909. For many years after that, Peter Onstead would have his own general store. When his sons were old enough to run it, Peter got interested in politics. He was village president from 1926 to 1929. He was also elected to the Dane County Board, and he was serving as chairman in August 1929 when at the age of 54 he died of a heart attack. Jenny lived until 1949. Emmett Amundsen never married and died in 1924 at the age of 41. He was buried next to his father, mother, and 2 sisters. His 2 younger brothers would both live for over 80 years in Cambridge and would be involved in shaping the community, along with forming the Cambridge Foundation. They were Dr. Carl Amundsen and A.R. Amundsen, president of the Bank of Cambridge. Little 1-year-old Doris, who went with her musically talented mother by train to California, would graduate from Cambridge High School in 1920. She went to Carroll College and Milwaukee Normal School before marrying a minister. She came back to Cambridge later in life and lived in her family home, the house where Peter stayed to keep Henry company while Dora was traveling, and the house where Peter and Jenny stayed after their honeymoon. The Olson house still stands beautifully across from the village park. Doris lived in that house until she was 1 month short of her 100th birthday in 2003. Doris' axe now too rests quietly in the Lake Ripley Cemetery. And one last comment, the train that carried everyone in this story to London could be boarded just across the street next to David W. Scobie's Wagon Works. Mr. Scobie was Doris's grandfather, and he was our village president from 1891 to 1894. We all follow in their footsteps. Thank you.
First of all, I'd like to thank everyone for coming out today, especially Linda, Jeff, Kathleen, and Peg. Eileen would be very happy. It was her wish to be here today, but it didn't happen. She was a very, as most of you know, very interesting person. She was very confident in her thoughts. She was very confident in the way she wanted to do things, and I think this foundation or this fountain is a memorial to her. I guess sometimes when you stand so close to the tree, you don't see the entire forest, and I think maybe our family in the last couple weeks have been able to appreciate Eileen for the scope of some of her thoughts and ideas that we maybe did not realize. We knew she was a wonderful person, a commanding aunt, and she usually had wishes that were carried out, not always happily, but they were carried out.
I was pleased in those few final weeks with visiting and spending so much time with Eileen that we did get her to record a little memory for us.
These are the footsteps of 2 counties that will never die, for they belong to the counties of Jefferson and Dane and the village of Cambridge, as given to us by Eleanor Roosevelt, Gordon Crump, the Prescotts, Dr. K.K. Allenson, and the loving care of our founding citizens. According to Eleanor Roosevelt, when you build a memorial, you build it not because the person wanted it, but for the future, for generations who didn't know the men and didn't know the era in which they lived. Here we stand.